Hey guys, welcome to Hope It Helps. And my guest on the show today is Miss Marta Kondryn. Marta, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Khalid. I'm super excited.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. So everyone, so people who don't know, so me and you connected through LinkedIn, and Marta, guys, is the head of people and culture at Mindvalley, which is a company that I'm obsessed with over the last few years. I've taken all their courses, and I always, recommend it to everyone. The stuff I've learned has made me who I am today, and I eternally grateful. So to speak to the head of people and culture of the company really brings everything full circle, and I'm super super excited to speak to you. But Marta, for the people who don't know, why don't you give all of us just a little bit of intro about yourself and your background, and we'll take the conversation from there.
Mm-hmm. So overall, I'm from Ukraine, and I moved all the way to Malaysia 7 years ago because I was also like a huge raving fan of Mindvalley, and I was very very excited to be a part of it. And 7 years ago, I joined at that time like two people HR team. It was super small, but also the company was small. We were 70 people in Kuala Lumpur. And from that time till now, we are 300 people team, and overall people and culture and HR has grown into 7 really amazing individuals who are driving different parts of people and culture, or in traditional form is HR. And personally, I'm extremely passionate about building organizations, healthy organizations, businesses that are based on empowering people, putting people in their strength domains, in building together solid cultures for the business purposes, for growing of the business. And also like seeing how people interact with the company, and what an amazing magic you can create from these interactions. So I'm personally very, very passionate about that, and I also think that work can be so fulfilling, and I believe that in Mindvalley we really are able to prove that you can have an amazing mission as the company. You can also support the mission of your people, and you can merge those two, so the team can be even more high performing.
Yeah.
I'm also quite often I speak at different events, and last year I spoke at TEDx. It was a very transformational experience for me, and also this year I published my ebook. So which maybe we'll talk about it today.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, first of all, thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it. And I've actually watched your TEDx talk, and I really loved it. And there's so many points that you mentioned that I think are so important to building a successful culture in a business that I'm going to dive into in a little bit. And we will get to the ebook later, because I know you also wrote a book in the past, the HR Atlas book. So I want to hear all about that as well. But for the people who don't know, how would you describe Mindvalley? What is the company, and what is the vision and the mission of the company?
So Mindvalley is in the business of transformation, of transformational education. We believe that our universities and our formal education doesn't prepare us fully for life. It doesn't give us real life skills that you can use, and you can live an amazing life as an individual, as a part of collective. Yes, we gain at university the hard skills, and we go into these careers and we start working, but quite often we end up not being fulfilled and happy as people, as individuals. So Mindvalley tries to bridge that gap and to fill those white spaces where university didn't fill it up. So if I were to put in examples, some education like how to be entrepreneur, whether you should be entrepreneur or not, how to meditate and build like an amazing healthy lifestyle, and really reverse your aging, right? How to improve relationship, maybe with your loved ones or with people, your social skills. So we try to solve those educational gaps, if I can say so. For this, we have a very powerful technology. So all our courses can be consumed on the app or on the web, and it's our own internally developed educational platform that we constantly innovate. And we also aiming to bring AI to that experience, to make it more integrated with your goals, with other hobbies and other people. The second component is that you are not alone in this process of education and transformation. There is a community of people who are also doing the same journey, and you feel that you actually grow with someone, and maybe you even form accountability groups with them, and you study and discover yourself together. So you for sure become a part of like a very strong, amazing community from around the world. And number three, it's different events, transformational events, online, offline, and connecting with people, not only through the learning journey, but actually through the real meetups. What is also very cool that is happening for us is that we decided to translate a lot of the content into some of the biggest languages out there. So we speak about Spanish, Portuguese, German, French, Italian, Chinese, Hindi. So we want to even like expand and reach a bigger audience through localizing our content. Russian, of course, too. It's been like a long time since we were in this market. So we also offer localized communities if you want to connect with the peers from your region, from your country as well.
Yeah. I think the thing you said about, first of all, I think it's a great idea to expand the languages because you're helping more people be able to, work with the platform and really like connect with, what the content actually means, because sometimes the language barrier can be a bit challenging. So it makes you a lot more, involved and more connected to the communities that you actually become a part of. So I've done the courses as well, and I've experienced being part of those communities, and everyone's very helpful. Everyone's so engaged, and seeing everyone like on their learning journey, and everyone kind of helps each other. So it's awesome to be a part of as well. Just even from just a networking perspective, you can make some pretty good friends through that too. And what you said about the transformational education and bridging the gap, I think that is exactly what Mindvalley does. The things like you said, like about education, managing wealth, like the life book, all these kind of things that we were never taught at university, how to think about life. You went to university to study a certain degree. Your whole focus was on that degree, but no one told you, okay, how do you translate that now into your degree? And you never probably asked yourself the question, what do I really want to do with this? What do I really want to do with my life? So I think that's exactly what Mindvalley does. Because when I explain it to people, I'm always like, it's an educational platform, but I think what you said is bridging that gap is exactly like what Mindvalley does. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. I wanted to come on to your TEDx talk. There's so many points in there that I'm like, okay, I would love to dive a little bit deeper on this. But the first thing you said in the talk was, it was given at the University of Malaysia, right? And you mentioned that your mother was also a university professor and that you wanted to make her proud. So what was her feedback after she watched that?
She was like she was extremely proud. She also sent to all our neighbors, all our like family friends, and everyone was reposting it. And in the end, like she quite often she would say to me that I'm so happy that you could do something that I was always dreaming about only. So this feeling of gratitude to life for some of the dreams. It's sad that she couldn't realize them, but she's also very happy that her kids were able to. So
that's awesome.
It was a very, very touching moment, to be honest.
Yeah.
To speak to her about it.
Yeah, I can imagine, and to see her, her daughter fulfill that dream that she always had must be, like you said, such a heartwarming, touching moment. That's awesome. One thing you said in the talk that really like struck with me was the quote you used. I really like the quote they used from the director of LSE, that in the past the jobs were about muscles, now they're about brains, in the future they'll be about hearts. But you also said that we don't celebrate empathy and kindness and caring, all those like maybe softer things, that interactions with people and so on, like we do with high performance, like, oh, this guy hit this target, so we should celebrate him for that achievement. But we don't celebrate the other stuff. So why do you think that's the way it is? In the past, that's the way it is. Especially, it might be changing nowadays, but what are the blocks that people have in their perception of that? Why is that not seen as something to be celebrated while the other is? What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I think like I think the world is of course embracing it much more with amazing work that Brené Brown is doing, right? She talks a lot about the power of vulnerability and how in fact great leaders are vulnerable leaders. So she's a researcher who researches this, and she already like was able to prove in so many ways. But I also like if you are in business, if your business is on the line, and like let's say you're losing money and you're not making any profit, this is probably the last thing that you will talk in the formal thing, right? But I also like strongly believe that that how you approach those things is actually is a part of that, right? It's actually can be an example of empathy and can be an example of like really understanding what's going on. And to me also, if we are operating from this, like from the heart, from being able to empathize with people, we are actually able to see much bigger picture than just seeing like, okay, this is like revenue, we're losing revenue, for example, or we are not innovating fast enough, let's do something. If you are starting to look at it, okay, let me take a pause and let me see from the perspective, okay, where is this person coming from? What are they going through at this point of time in their lives, in their careers? What is the outcome of that, and how can I help? How can I modify the situation? Because at the end of the day, it will benefit exactly your problem. What is also important to note is that, like overall as organizations, we talk a lot about in organizational intelligence, which is the results, the innovation, the marketing strategies, right? But we very often don't realize that these are the outcome of the health, which is organizational health. And by this, I mean the mission, the values, understanding why does your company exist, how you operate together, who are the key team members and how do you interact with them, where they're coming from as people. So the results of organizational intelligence are actually coming from organizational health. And if you don't cater to those, you actually, to me, you will not like reach the highest performance as a business, as a company. And it's not only like based on my example in Mindvalley. My example is like super small, and it's been 7 years that I actively practice. There are much more experienced and amazing people who talk about it. One of those is actually Jim Collins, who was writing this book about good to great companies, right? He studied them for so many years, and he asked, okay, what makes these companies last for so long? The companies that would start in 19th century, right? They're still like existing to that. And he actually saw that they really had a very clear purpose. They really had like values that were like clearly defined, and everyone was relating to them. They really took care about their people and creating opportunities of growth and retention of those people. This is all about what we say hearts and empathy, and approaching things with less about intelligence and more about the health and the heart.
Yeah. And I think what you said is a point that many people maybe don't consider, is the difference between the organizational like success and organizational health. And I never saw the link between the two, but listening to you and looking back at my experience, that is what it's all about. Because if your people are not happy, if your people are upset, or they're stressed, or they're unmotivated, and it's collective, that is going to have an end result on your revenue and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the times, do you think that correlation in most businesses or in the world today is clear enough, or do you still think people see it as two separate things? Like, oh, we can be successful without having our organization at a good health. What do you think?
I still think like some organizations really don't pay enough attention, or they will make it, or this is like just HR stuff, like it doesn't really make a big difference. Because of course it does, like it creates a long-lasting change. It's not something that you create and then the next day it brings result for the revenue, let's say. It does create a long-term success on the revenue. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, you know, like revenue and strategy is not important. It's like so important, being able to identify and be very clear and communicate. It's super crucial. And innovation is like innovating at this time especially, right? It's super crucial. But super important before doing that is really to have an amazing team and to invest in leadership and in team and how you operate, and be very clear about this and congruent, of course. And trust me, like even the companies who like maybe like have those that you are not aligned, but the moment you are very clear about it, it's like so much better for employees. So those who are needed, they will stay. You know, those who won't be relatable to that, they will leave, which is totally fine. So yeah, so I like coming back to your question, I still think like many companies really like either like trying to say, oh, this is not our role, this is HR's job, or it's too fluffy, or it doesn't bring immediate change, or it's all this like management concepts that you cannot apply into practice. They always like think that way. Some of them think that way. But at the same time, I really think that many businesses as well right now, they like all of us, people and businesses have been like forced to think about existence and why do we exist, right? And what drives us, and will our business survive? And in fact, those businesses that have the strong reason to survive are coming back strong. Right. So
Yeah.
I think like this, the whole 2020 was a lot for companies to really look at it from another angle and to start asking themselves these questions.
Yeah, no, I think you said it. I think you said it perfectly about that. Especially this year, it kind of forced everyone to take a look at, you know, their companies and culture and all the things maybe you didn't pay enough attention to before, and now really looking forward, given everything that's happened. How do we start? What's the future of the company look like? How do we want to operate? How do we want to take care of our employees and so on? And one thing you said in the talk was, you asked the question that if you were in trouble, and or if you were going through a difficult time, would your company be there for you? And as you know, with COVID has affected everyone, businesses and individuals. So, and a lot of people have lost their jobs. Now, I believe that if a company truly wanted to show that it cared about its employees, especially during COVID, maybe, I don't know how, I'm not saying I have the solution, but trying to keep everyone on board would be, I think, the biggest sign of loyalty that you could show to your employees. But at the same time, I understand business is business, and for business to operate and continue, sometimes just given financial struggles, it just doesn't work out. So how do you think people should be now moving forward? How do you, like, with COVID, do you think people have handled it the right way, or was there, but just by letting people go, or do you think there was another way that you could have gone about it? For example, at Mindvalley, I know you told me you guys had to restructure a couple of things, move to online, more to online and so on. So how did you guys handle it, and what do you think about that whole situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very good question, Khalid. For Mindvalley, we, of course, like as I mentioned, events department, live events were canceled. Our events department is quite big. So, but at the same time, these are the people who have been with us for 8+ years. Like these are like some of the most solid employees. And of course, like we didn't even want to do anything like to get them leaving, but we definitely restructured. One way was to create online events. Another way, we upskilled the team. So the team was some of them turned into YouTube marketeers. I was actually speaking last week, and the employee who was doing events before, now she's super good in YouTube marketing on French, which is wow, it's so amazing. She's so happy. So we were upskilling them, reskilling for what is needed at this time. So we took that stand more, and I think like we were blessed that we had these opportunities, while other companies weren't able to do that, right? Let's look at Airbnb, right? We saw how Airbnb handled it, and I think this the key here is how companies are handling it. The layoffs are for some businesses are inevitable. You have to do it. Same what happened for Airbnb, but how they handled it, how they communicated, it's very admiring. So there is this like a viral article of where their CEOs described exactly what's going to happen to employees who are being asked to resign or retrenched, exactly what are the reasons, what types of support they will get, including like counseling, career and job coaching, creating alumni database of all ex-employees and reaching out to his CEO's friends and helping them to find jobs. And I truly think this is like an example of how companies can support employees in these times. If you have to let somebody go, like the way you communicate and like being very transparent about the reasons is very important. And second, what you will do to help, even like minimum things, and really like showing that you are doing this by action makes a big difference. And already like there is a lot of research about that when employees feel that they were given like valid reasons, and these reasons are clearly transparently communicated, it already improves the experience of this horrible thing of letting someone go. And second, if they felt supported by providing different options for them after employment. So I think like this was like super good lesson to learn from Airbnb this year, and I think many of HR people were amazed by it.
Yeah. I didn't consider either of those 2 points. Actually, I love what you guys did, that you know, instead of letting people go, you looked at it in a different way and like, okay, let's upscale people. So I think that works in 2 ways, because number one, people kept their job. Number two, you show loyalty to your employees. And number three, that employee, even though he might be doing an extra job now, he now has a new set of skills that can be transferred like later down the line to whatever they want to do, or whatever that might be. So there's a lot of benefit that comes from that. But like you said, in some situations it is inevitable, unfortunately. You know, businesses need to survive, and sometimes you have to let people go even if you don't want to. But I think how Airbnb did it in your example, communicating it in the right way and showing support to your employees even after, you know, having to let them go, especially in such a difficult time. That's what I think, that's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember that, okay, fine, it's a shame, but everyone's going through this, and at least they supported me. They might have me get a good job, a different job, gave me some counseling, whatever it might be. So having that extra like aspect of empathy or like care to your employees, especially in such a difficult time, I think is a great way to look at it and a great way to go forward. Yeah. And so I wanted to come on to basically what the whole talk was about, which was your playbook for modern communities. And I know it was split up into 3 things. So there was trust, rich culture, and teamwork. Now, I wanted to start with trust, because I think this is such an interesting topic, and I think it's so crucial to, you know, building any kind of relationship with people. So, and I love the experiment that you did, actually, when you got everyone to unlock their phone and pass it to the other person. I would feel so uncomfortable doing that. So I can imagine everyone in the room was feeling the same way. And what you said is that trust requires vulnerability from all of us and from organizations. And you used Airbnb as an example, that Airbnb is about opening people to their homes and so on, and you're coming into their home. So it's quite a vulnerable thing to do. So I've always been of the belief personally, and you know what everyone says, that trust is something that is earned. Now, I watched one of Gary Vee's videos recently, and I know he has a course with you guys, and he said something that really made me think about trust in a different way. He's like, to say trust is earned from his perspective is an egotistical thing and comes from a place of fear. He's like, the way I work is I give trust, and then either you keep it or you lose it. So you're not earning it, I'm giving it to you blindly, and then we see what happens after that. What do you think about what he said? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? And how do you start building trust in an organization?
Yeah, I think like it's amazing what he shared, and I think like a lot comes from him as the CEO of the company, right? He's on the top of the organization, and him sending this message that I give trust no matter where you start, on who you are. It's a great way to work with people, and I think it's really, I would love to watch that video myself too. So for sure, if the leader of the organization says, I give you trust, and here you have this like fragile ways that you need to carry and you need to take care of it, that's the first step actually. And if a CEO walks this talk and really proves it and goes by example, that's already like a huge step. Then other people will follow, right? I also see here, speaking about trust, is also creating the environment where you not only give it, but actually you cultivate it, right? So in everyday actions, you can see it. You can see it from people, especially, let's say, if there are mistakes that happen, right? Every day there are so many mistakes that might cost a lot of money. So how do you deal with those, right? And with the people who make these mistakes. At the same time, like let's say on the meetings, the typical trust-based trust building environment in organization, you can actually see what is the level of trust and what is actually the level of it while attending some of the meetings, especially where there is like the top team in the room. If people speak up and people have this healthy disagreement with each other, and when they leave the room and they feel oh my god, this has been like such a great discussion, I love it, then I think like we can say that the trust is actually present in the organization. But if there is only like one person talking and people hate going to that meeting and they don't speak up, no one else speaks up, that's actually a sign that okay, like there actually might not be a room for trust. So how do you create this environment? Usually very simple things that managers can actually do. I always say, start by saying something a little bit more about yourself. Like first, like when sharing about like past day or past week, like share a little bit more what's going on behind the standard phrases, right? Or even we like to start our daily meetings with every team with gratitude. So everyone gets to share what they're grateful for. And then they go into, okay, and my focus for the day is this, this, and that. So we notice that when people start with gratitude, and that goes the same for all the managers, that actually opens a lot of avenue for being vulnerable, for showing a bit of your side that is not only work side. And that also fosters trust on an everyday level, because people can relate to you and people can see that you are actually a human and you have maybe troubles, maybe successes. So these simple practices help a lot. Another super good practice that we do when we have every quarter strategy meetings. And strategy meetings usually like 2 days. The top team meets and plan like, okay, what's happening for this quarter, for this year, where we are. A day before, we gather, all of us together for dinner. So, and this dinner, we don't talk about strategy. We don't talk about anything work related. We just talk about ourselves, our what's going on in our life, and just like checking in with each other where we are as people. And usually these dinners like are amazing preface of actually tomorrow I can debate with you. I can like healthily contradict or healthily like have this healthy conflict, because we need it. We need the strategy to be very solid. If there is no trust, if there is only formal words, then like there will be like a strategy won't be like as inspiring or as big as we could be. So this also proved to us, like especially on the leadership team, where there are like super solid, super like amazing individuals who are also hard-headed many times, many occasions. So this environment where you actually catch up and see each other as people is usually super helpful. And I personally, I also like in my work, I'm not a big fan of personality tests, for example, for hiring or making some like promotion decisions, but I really use them to get to know my team. So we like doing from time to time when we have a team retreat or a team gathering to share some of the tests inside that we did, personality tests. And then like, or actually like seeing this person from another side is also helps us to boost trust in many ways.
Yeah. I really like what you said about, first of all, I think the dinner before having such a big meeting is a great idea, because you're priming yourself to be, you know, everything's discussed, you know, how where everyone's coming, where they are in their, you know, in their life personally. And then when you go into the meeting, like you said, that you feel like we can have this debate, even if, you know, if we have different opposing views, like we've laid the
Yeah.
groundwork so we can have a good debate together. And also what you said about, it all starts, I think in any company, it all starts from the top, from the CEO, and it comes down, because them showing some kind of vulnerability, them showing that, you know, they're also just a person. They have, you know, they have kids, they have families, they have the same problems that any, you know, the top level have the same problems that the bottom level have too. It's just everyone has their own problems. And I think that really, like you said, it makes it more relatable. It makes me look at you as, oh, you're not okay, yes, you're my boss, but you're also a person. So, you know, if there's days that you have, you know, might have been a bit aggressive with me, I understand, okay, if I know what's going on in your life, okay, I can understand that. It gives me more room to be compassionate, or more room to be understanding. And why do you think that in most organizations, at least, I've been in some I've been in some organizations myself where I could be like, okay, yes, I did, there was trust, and I can also look at others that there wasn't. And what you also said in the talk, like you want people to come as themselves to work. So not be like, work Khalid or work Marta. You want us to be fully who we are and ourselves. So why do you think in a lot of companies that is not there? Does it come from a place of fear? Is it from an insecurity? Is it because the environment in that office or in that company doesn't give you the opportunity to be yourself, in those, you know, at work?
Mm-hmm. Ah, I think it's a combination of many things, um, because like we still sometimes operate that work is work, and then there is life, and I need to put this mask when I come to work, right? And it's like for this amount of hours, and then I go to home. And I think like a lot, like still like many businesses operate in this mentality of win lose, right? If I do something and then you must lose, right? Like in this like competitive win lose situations, that of course impacts the customers and the people as well, the employees. And actually that's how like a lot of corporations are like built. And even I now, when I talk to my friends who are in big corporations, and I ask them, they predominantly extremely unhappy, but they're there because like it's security, it's job, it's amazing salary, they have all these perks. But if I ask them, okay, but are you healthy, or are you fulfilled? It's super hard for them. And I saw like some people who would leave this corporation after some time, how lost they are without them, you know. um, so yes, you're right, a lot of businesses still operate in that sense, but there is also a lot of movement, I feel, right now, in terms of like, okay, like first you cannot separate, because there is actually no separation. In fact, 80% of time we are at work, right? Second, there are a lot of studies that high engagement, what we spoke, like high level of vulnerability, being valued, and being like really knowing that the company cares for you, drives innovation and drives results of companies, right? So it's already like, that's why there is a lot of like companies with amazing culture, and they talk about it, and all the Silicon Valley is all about that, right? So I think like the movement is there, uh, but still like people are to this point of time like can be miserable at work. But I also think like okay, like, yes, companies are creating that for us, but also it's up to us where we are in our life and what we want to achieve from the life, and what's our journey, what's our stage of life, right? So it's a lot on us as well as employees, as individuals, to choose where we want to be.
Yeah.
Of course, I can't say like, right, like maybe for I don't have kids, and so it's probably easy for me to choose, right? Compared to parents, to working parents, or people who don't have so many privileges as I do. So I am in many senses very, very privileged, to what I'm grateful. But I also think like the moment we like grow ourselves as individuals, if we invest in our personal growth, no matter what, that's where like we can transform a lot of organizations too. So like, to finalize my answer, which is super long, is to, like, it goes hand in hand. On one side,
Yeah.
organizations are evolving and they need to be conscious about it, and another side, us in individuals as well. It's a lot of power in our hands, and consciousness needs to happen in our existence too, how we exist as individuals and what we really want from work too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you said a great point about it's goes hand in hand. It's responsibility on us as people, to invest in ourselves and to, I guess, develop that vulnerability. I'd like to think of it as a muscle, because it's something that you train and you get better with over time. And it's also for the company to provide you a platform or an environment for you to, I guess, like develop those skills and, engage with people in that way and so on. Do you think that, let's say there's an environment that is not like catered towards vulnerability and so on, it's not that kind of environment. Do you think a person could be the catalyst to change all that if they start acting and being vulnerable with people? Because I've always believed, at least in my experience, that if you're vulnerable, you being vulnerable invites people to be vulnerable with you. And it's kind of like a domino effect when that starts happening. So do you think people can become the change that they'd like to see in the company? Or do you think that sometimes, even if you do change, the environment is just too, I guess, unwelcoming for something like that?
Mm-hmm. I think like to some extent, yes, you can change, and you can definitely change in your immediate team. And I saw examples where the team would be like, as we speak right now, vulnerable with each other while organization is very stiff. So definitely as individuals, we can change on our immediate circles. And for sure, I want to encourage that, and we can make this change. To say that this is going to be organization-wide change, I think it's quite tough. And many examples, it really needs to go to CEO, to the owner, and where he is in his level of development and level of growth, what's going on in his life, right? This we can see like exactly like where CEO is, what he's going through. It exactly reflects on the company. It's very like strange to think that way, but you cannot separate, especially if this person is a founder too, right? Because it's his idea, his brand is coming from his heart and his mind. These are interconnected. So if the CEO has problems with being vulnerable, it will be almost impossible to do it on organizational level, because he will not accept it. He will not receive it even. If he is like growing in his consciousness and or her consciousness, and really like stepping into that, like that's the big change will happen.
Yeah. No, I think you made a good point that it really does, especially like you said, if they're also the founder as well, it's them, it's their baby, it's their vision, it's how,
Yeah.
and it's a big, like I said, it is a big reflection on the culture, is a big reflection on how they see things and how they operate and what's going on in their life. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't keep in mind as much. You might think it's just, your manager that's not like that or whatever, but it, like I said, it starts from the top and it comes all the way down. And do you think that, coming on the to finish off, to wrap up trust, do you think that building trust at work is the same as building trust in your personal relationships? Because I was thinking about it, I'm like, building trust in a personal relationship would be like you and a friend having an experience together, or like sharing some stories, or sharing a secret, or whatever it might be, and trusting each other that we're on the same page, and that's how trust over time is developed and so on. But at work, how would that happen at work? What are the kind of moments, or do you have an example of a story for you that while you were at work, you're like, now I feel you come in and the environment's like that, but I think something needs to happen for you as a person to feel like, no, I really trust the people around me and what's going on. Do you have a story that maybe just brings that all together?
Uh-huh. If I were to think about the story, I think definitely when I joined Mindvalley, it was like the next level of this trust. And previously I was working, it was a good organization, but it was like completely different level. So actually when I started, for the first 6 months, the feedback that the team shared with me was, you are so amazing, you work so hard, you're like a high performer, but you are by yourself. You don't, it seems like you are too individualistic. And I was so shocked, like I always found myself a team player and I wanted to be a team player. And this feedback was actually like quite transformational for me, because I never saw it this way. And it really like showed to me how people actually like care about you, and also like who you are, and like being a part of the team. So it was one of the like vulnerable moments where people, and I saw like actually the power of Mindvalley team like exactly in this moment when it was shared, because people were like, they care about you so much, they want you to succeed, and they are not afraid to share openly this feedback. So this was one of the very, very crucial, pivotal moment for me. And I think like if I were to speak like a bit later during the years about Mindvalley, we had like I think we had a really amazing moment when our CEO Vision, he shared at team retreat. We were all together, and he shared some very, very personal story of his life, what he was going through at that time. And literally after that, like the company went through such a powerful moment of growth, like speaking about revenue and money. And that's when the idea of all access came up. That's where the Quest app platform was built. Like I only like realized that like quite late during, I didn't like connect these moments. And then we shared with him, like that's because you were on that stage. And after that, actually, like almost the entire team ran to him and we were hugging him, and it was just like very, very emotional and nice moment. So yeah, so to come back to your question, I think there were like Mindvalley is quite on the like quite like a strong example. So like in a regular company, it might be very different than before, than what we have in Mindvalley, but I think the moment the company like chooses for themselves, or like CEO chooses for themselves, this is how we'll run the team, you can change it and you can implement it right away. I
Yeah.
hope I answered to your question,
Yeah, no, no,
Khalid.
no. No, you did. No, it's awesome. Those stories are perfect examples of, when you felt that you had trust in the organization, and looking like, especially the one regarding getting that kind of feedback, because sometimes we have an idea of how people perceive us, but then when you get that feedback and you're like, for example, in your case, you didn't think that you were being, individualistic, but that's such that, like, sometimes we have blind spot that only other people can see, that we can't see, and helps us reflect and grow. So, and that just like you said, that just shows you that they do care. That's where it comes from. When you're giving feedback to help someone, help them transform, help them, grow, that's where it comes from. So no, your stories made perfect sense and perfectly
Okay.
explained like what they were talking about. I wanted to come on to, so for the playbook, there was trust, rich culture, and teamwork. So we've talked about the trust. Now coming over to culture, and you guys have something called the Code of Awesomeness, and which was something was so. And but you were talking about how that's almost like the code of conduct for the company. But you also said that a lot of companies, they write the code, and then that's hidden, and you only come to it when there's like maybe an issue, and it's not something that is more like ingrained into the culture. So why don't you tell all of us, what is the Code of Awesomeness, and how has it impacted the company?
Mhm. So code of awesomeness, as you said, is a code of conduct. It's actually our operating values or company values that we identified for ourselves. Now, in Mindvalley, we have two types of values. One is brand or founder values. The three of them: unity, transformation, and envisioning. And these are very, very much stemmed from where the brand stands from, and as well as founders' values. Usually these three rarely change. They can only evolve. For them to change, it's actually the business idea, the business should change, right? So we have those. But there are also like a second layer to this. It's something that how your team wants to operate, something how your team would appraise someone or would think, oh, this person is a high performer. So this is code of awesomeness. And interesting that it was already like it's already like a third iteration since I joined that we have it, and we are not afraid to change it because we know that the team changes. And it exactly comes from, at that time it was top 60 people who came together, who identified, okay, how do we want to operate? Mostly like our senior leaders and very highly valued specialists, that the opinions of whose we value a lot. So they all met, 60 top people, and identified and rewrote the code of awesomeness together. So it was super important that it wasn't only Vision who was there, who was driving. He wasn't even driving this conversation. He was a participant as well. And all of them together identified, okay, how will I know that I'm performing in Mindvalley? How will I know that I'm a high performer? What are these people that we are praising all the time do differently? How do we codify that? That actually was like the process of code of awesomeness being developed. And then after that, it was reflected in our onboarding and induction, how we onboard team members, in our appraisal process, in giving feedback each other. So these principles were also turned into competencies. So people were saying, okay, where do I stand in terms of this? What else do I need to improve? And and so it tripled into all HR or people processes as well. But again, I always say like at certain point the team changes and you need to do this exercise again. So it's usually, I think, like every 3-4 years you really need to do an inventory of this. Do this still make sense for us? And also notice what's happening in the organization, right? Even such words that, or let's say, this person worked overnight over the weekend, they got it fixed, they are amazing. What does it mean about your culture, right? That you appreciate actually people, I don't know, going extra mile, or like high quality, or like this like overnight workers, right? And you want to, like, this hustle mentality you want to cultivate. That's actually talks a lot about your culture. Super important for you to catch it and codify it and communicate to the team. Hey guys, you actually are a high performer here if you are hustling over the weekend. This is appreciated, right? So also important not only to write and like follow, but also notice what's happening in the company and trying to always like evolve that. That's a very important factor too.
Yeah, I really like how it's so open, and like you said, it's translated from just being a code to actual competencies. So each employee can look at it and be like, where do I stand, and how do I fit in? Am I aligned with the values of the company? So I think it's super useful to have it so open, and the fact that it has come from people within the company makes it a lot more, I guess, relatable. It's not just one person, the CEO, like Vision, sitting down and be like, this is what we're going to do, but it's everyone coming together and, creating it together. And on the concept of culture, because so you said that every 3 to 4 years you take a look at the code and ask, does this still work for us? So do you think company culture needs to evolve as time goes on, or is culture something that is kind of timeless, and that just, no matter how long the organization is there for, this is the culture that we want to have? Or are there two different aspects to that?
I think that definitely it should evolve, because also like the stages of the company. When you are a startup, it's very different when you are a 300 people company, right? It's how you operate. When you are going to IPO, that's another level of complexity. What is also like, I think like at every stage you need to see, okay, what is that we wanna like keep and cultivate? What doesn't serve us anymore any longer, right? For example, for some time in Mindvalley, we were calling ourselves a family. Like, this is a family. We're like all in this together. But then we realized we don't want to be any more family, because we want to be on IPO. We want to like be able to build the best technology, right? We want to work with the best authors. We really want the team to be different levels. So we decided we want to be a sports team now. So I think I think like the culture will evolve, and that happened to Mindvalley as well. It was like it went through like evolution, in a sense that it's always like being conscious and being like aware of what's happening in this point of time. Same with Code of Awesomeness, right? Like being able to articulate, it's super important. And as well as like new people join, as old people leave, who were part of that creation process. And I also feel that when new people join, that's for them opportunity to contribute a lot to the culture and make the change that they would like to see. So to me, this is a very evolutionary process. It's also like, let's look at Microsoft, right? Microsoft is a very great example. When there was this CEO for a long time, his surname, if I'm not mistaken, was Balmer, right? Jim Balmer, I think. He was very ruthless, like strict CEO, all about revenue. Like people were like, there is this meme of a toxic organizational culture being shared, where like all departments having like guns on each other, right? Like this is how they were communicating, working. The moment he left and another guy stepped in, the current CEO, he was like a long-term employee, and like he immediately spoke, my culture will be about growth mindset, about giving open feedback, and this will lead us to innovation. The culture has changed, and it's amazing, the transformation. Now Microsoft stock is even increased, like it impacted to that. So for sure this like an evolutionary process, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that makes, I never considered that, because I always thought that culture is something that is kind of almost the ethos of the organization, and it can be adjusted, but it shouldn't be changed from from when you were a startup to as you grow. But as you know as well, I'm sure you've seen, like you said, in Mindvalley, there's been evolutions, there's been transformations, but a lot of companies, as they grow, they typically tend to lose the culture from, for example, when they were a startup. And a lot of employees might feel that new culture is not something that's not why they joined the company. It's gone from being like you said, you guys used to be a family, and now it's more of like a team, like a sports team, as you said.
Yeah.
So, and in a lot of startups, at the beginning, that's kind of what it feels like, and then as it grows, it becomes a bit more corporate. It becomes, and especially if you're on an IPO and so on, it changes. So, do is the issue that in a lot of organizations, the culture is changing without taking the employees like feedback into consideration, and that's why you say, as companies grow, they lose culture? Or is it that the culture never changes as the company grows? Which one would you say? What do you think?
um I actually don't think like a culture should evolve based on feedback employees all the time. In a way, in a way, I say it is that when new people join, they should be empowered to see that they like that they can contribute to the culture, they can enrich it, right? They don't
Okay.
change it necessarily, but they enrich it, right?
Mm,
They see like something doesn't work out, how do we fix it? What's going on here, right? Rather than only fitting in. um, uh, yeah, so let me know if I answered the question. Maybe I just didn't understand the second part. What did you mean by it?
yeah, so I was just saying that in a lot of the cases, like you said, that, okay, I think you said it right, that it's not about changing the culture, it's about when they join, can they enrich the culture? But a lot of companies, as they grow, they tend to lose the culture that they started with. But as we discussed, just now, that you said that culture is something that needs to evolve, but should culture completely change? Do you understand what I mean? Like as you grow, it tends to go from like startup. Once you get like bigger, it's more corporate, and you don't have the values that you started with aren't necessarily here. Or is culture something that there should be a foundation, and we make a slight adjustment as time goes on, not like a completely, revamp? What do you think?
Yeah. It depends. I think it depends a lot on different factors. Of course, depends on CEO as well, how he sees it, and or the owner or the founder. Um, like I think like probably like let's go back to really understanding why does your business exist. This
Okay.
would be like even a sooner like question, right? Before like talking about the culture, like understanding, okay, like what is that we are doing, what's the mission of the company, is it still the same? So this is not like, it's a very important component, right? Because from there, that's how you like attract people, that's how you operate, and so on, right? So probably like the mission will be always like mostly will be there. It will be maybe go through slightly like variations, but like the existence of the business will remain, the why will remain the same. And then how you're reaching that, those components of culture will go through evolution, right? So like how we make decisions, like who are the people who are driving it, that's going to be like go through evolution. And again, here will come, okay, the different stage of the company, where you are at, and what is needed at that point of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah. And also like if we were to talk about the principles, right? I mentioned that like for Mindvalley, we identified these three fundamental founder brand values, which are kind of like a filter for a lot of things. And then on top, we built the principles that are needed at this point of time for the culture. So probably like the mission, not probably, for sure, mission of the company, why you exist, and this like three non-negotiable things, they will stay like long, and they will serve you for a long time. Everything else will go through evolution transformation.
Yeah, I think you said it perfect. That's the part that I wasn't aware of. It's the part before all the changes happen, is that super important question is, why does this business exist? And the three values, that was the foundation that I was talking about. So that is what doesn't change, and that is what all the transformation, all the adjustments that come with it are built from there. That's where it comes from, and that's how things evolve and so on. That was a part I've never understood. So thank you. I had no idea about that part. I think you're 100% right. And moving on to the last part of the modern play community thing is teamwork. So I think teamwork is an interesting thing. Everyone likes to say, yeah, we're a team, teamwork, yeah, go together. But we've all been part of teams where, someone doesn't carry their weights. Not everyone's in line with the same, not everyone has the same vision of the team. Not everyone is maybe fully involved or recognized in the team. So on the aspect of teamwork, how do we build like good teams, like strong teams? Where does it start from? What are the factors that go into all that?
So many things I think to talk about here, but I personally am a strong proponent and supporter of Patrick Lencioni's model of 5 dysfunctions of the team. Right, there is like the book. It's amazing. Like I love it so much, and I always like all the new managers, they know that I'll be talking about it in Mindvalley. But specifically in this 5 dysfunctions, he talks, the very first one is actually like he built it on trust, right? So everybody, you cannot reach result if people don't trust each other, right? So the very first component is to have this solid trust building process that everybody shows as themselves, and not as like, oh, I'm the smartest or I'm the best. And it's actually on the role of the leader a lot to create that like environment, and also to encourage the people to do it, right? Another thing is super important is like is for the team. Of course, I also think that every team in the organization needs to have their purpose, like really clear understanding why they exist in this business. And for some, these reasons can be like very different. Like for example, for marketing team in Mindvalley, like the main why for them is to drive revenue, and they're very revenue driven team members. They love like talking about this boosting and all the ideas how they will boost the revenue. So being very clear of why does this team exist in your organization or this department, and the role of the managers, of course, is to reiterate that that why existence. For people and culture in Mindvalley, it's the purpose is to take care of the people and to foster and to enrich the culture of the company. That's our our existence and purpose. So and we also like have a lot of practices where teams would align with vision and see like, is the purpose of this team, is this still the same? Do we see it in the same way? So there is like better collaboration, better understanding where everyone is coming from. Number three, it's to me also like super important, it's stable membership in the team. Meaning that people that you work with, they are there like playing long-term game with you, right? I noticed from my experience that the team members that are the teams that would maybe like are created for the quarter, or people leave like quite often, that's actually like leads to not a great teamwork, and not actually essentially like team members not being the most high performing. So the better is the stable and the better is the membership, the stronger is the team experience as well. Of course, super important is to have a coach expert. Let's look at the football teams, right? You have a coach who is probably former football player as well, who has like this skills. So if, for example, if you have a new manager who is running the team, it's very crucial that they set the pace for learning, set the pace for their own upgrade all the time, and encourage the team to grow. So having this expert coach is also like super important. It is actually a criteria that I'm describing right now, that how we run the teams in Mindvalley as well, the criteria of high performing team.
Yeah, I think what you said about the stable membership one was interesting. I haven't heard anyone speak about that aspect before, but it does make sense. If the teams are constantly, people are leaving and so on, it becomes hard to develop that, I think, that trust in the team if you know if not everyone's there for the long term. And also having such a very clear purpose of why are we here, what's our main job. Like you said in your example with the marketing, they're purely revenue driven, and each department knows what they're there for, knows why they're doing it. And also that there has to be collaborations between, you know, C-level and so on, to make sure that is the purpose of this team still relevant to us? Do we need to still be doing these kind of things, or do we have to shift, and so on? So I think those three things are really interesting. I never considered the two.
And the same for like, especially like it's very applicable for executive teams on the top, like for them, like following this kind of criteria, because then that will trickle down, right? But if executive team like constantly changes, if executive team is not about being executive and running the company, but more about like innovation and revenue, like so the purpose becomes unclear, that actually like creates so many leadership problems for the organization as well. Then so like I think like if you were to start with like solid teams in any company, like really start from this executive team and trying to meet this criteria. And also stable membership means that you have very clearly defined roles for everybody. So everyone in the room knows what's their role, what they're playing, and how they're contributing. Because again, the moment you have people who don't understand why they're in that room, why they're part of this team, it's also like usually doesn't lead to like any success there too.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's important to do it from the executive team and then, you know, move it down, because I guess that's the team that facilitates all the other teams that come along with it. And I think what you said about the role, making sure everyone knows exactly what they do and how the keyword I think is contribute. Because if I'm part of a team that I feel that I'm not really contributing, or I don't know why I'm here, I'm probably not going to do my best work. I'm going to feel demotivated, or I'm not going to be in line or connected to other people in the team and the vision behind the team as well.
Mhm.
So I think that's a very good point. And you also talked about how look at work as a community, like look at your work university as a community and as an experience. So I think Mindvalley is a great example of this. So how do we, and I think the aspect of teams as well plays into all that, building this kind of community and so on. So how does a company start building the kind of community that, you know, supports everything we talked about today, supports the trust, supports the culture, and supports, you know, empowering others, and, you know, this whole everything to do with teamwork?
Mhm. Um, I, I think like we are very good and lucky in Mindvalley because probably the people that we hire is very like-minded, and we always like at this point of time, at least in our company growth, like we have a lot of friends. So some of the closest friends are actually from Mindvalley. For in my case, you know, so it's actually amazing, and I know for many others as well. It's very similar. So so having like we have a lot of rituals for creating that, and it's also like non-negotiable for us that people, we trust in friendships at work. This is one of the principles for us, that we believe in friends at work. We know about this study that that the most engaged and the most long-serving employees were those who had who could name like at least one person from the company who was their close friend, right? So we follow the same, and exactly like a manifest for us as well. So communities would start for us. Community like feeling is through different rituals. So we organize a lot of like culture events, a lot of connections events for the team members. Now on Zoom we have a lot of like online activities that we do. Like we also have this famous culture days where every team culture of specific country needs to represent the whole day their own specific culture. This is on top of like doing your regular job. You have to do it too. So this kind of like rituals where people will appear a bit like, again, less formal, less about work, but more about themselves or their culture or their story, that's actually fosters friendships as well a lot. And of course, Mindvalley is we are in business of transformation. This is also something that we promise to our employees. So employees go through this transformation, and we create a lot of space for team to learn together. So if there is quest about a perfect diet like WildFit, you will always find a group of people, employees, who go through the same. They would go WildFit, they will start and end together. They will keep each other accountable. It's very beautiful to see, and this also usually forms a lot of friendships too.
Yeah.
So yes, super important for us, and it's actually not so difficult to do for companies. Doesn't cost a lot of money to organize those.
Yeah, it's giving people, I guess, the opportunities or the activities to start developing these deeper connections, making these friendships, learning about people in other teams, and
yeah.
and in Mindvalley, it's the fact that everyone's transforming together. I think it's a very relatable thing. Like, oh, we're on the same quest. That's cool. How's it going for you? So it's a lot easier to, you know, to relate to each other. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that makes a lot of sense. I wanted to move on to your books. So I know you've written a book in the past called the HR Atlas book, a roadmap to healthy organization for startups, small and medium-sized businesses. So why don't you tell us what that book was, you know, all about, what was the vision behind it? And I know you also have another book coming up, guys, on December 15th, coming up soon. So really excited about that too. So tell us about HR Atlas first, and then I'd love to hear about the new book as well.
It's actually the same book, so there are
Oh, it's
no
the
two
same book.
books. It's
Oh,
only one.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. I thought that was an older book. Okay, my
You
apologies.
overestimate my abilities. I wish, but no.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so this has been like the fruit of work for this year. It's an ebook. It's not a printed book, not yet, at least, maybe in the future. But it actually, like, it served a lot about reflection about my experience of building HR in Mindvalley, starting from being very small to building a solid team. So I also like thought about other companies and that I spoke to before, and I saw them like seeing like HR is either very complex what to build, or like even talking about health of organizations, something that maybe we don't need, or how do we do it. So it's written as a very practical guide for a new founder, new CEO, or HR people who want to turn their organization into healthy ones. It's based a lot on my own experience of what I do in Mindvalley, what we do in Mindvalley, how we practice a lot of things, and it's also made very, very practical. So a lot of things from there you can implement right away in your organization. So it was a very exciting project, and I hope it will be useful for all of you guys.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it will be. And like you said, I think people have a misconception sometimes about what's the role of HR. How would you describe it? Because a lot of people think like HR is just hiring, firing, recruitment, compensation. You know, I guess how do I put this? Like just the daily functions of the business. But I know HR plays a much bigger role than that. So what would you say?
Um, to me, HR is very crucial to build an effective team. If you as CEO want to build an amazing team, and you have the ideas on how it should look like, what are some of the principles, you like HR is the best companion to make it happen. It's almost impossible to do it by yourself as the CEO. You will set your vision, but execute it and build the amazing team. That's exactly the role of the HR. And by the amazing team, I mean the team that will build your business. So HR roles is undeniable there. And it's simple. It's actually like build a great team that works well together. That's what the role for me is for me.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, the founder or the CEO might have the vision, and they need HR to hire the right people and put together the right teams to fulfill the business and to actually get this business, up and running. Exactly. No, that I think that makes a lot of sense, and it's a very good point. And on the book, so what would you say if you could pick 2 to 3 for the people watching? 2 to 3 key takeaways. What would you say? What would be the 3 key
Mhm.
takeaways from people could get from the book?
Um, for sure, you will learn how to structure the HR team. What are the most important things to focus on when you are only starting a company and you just the beginning of building the HR function? Very key and very workable components of the culture. And I'm not talking about perks and benefits. It's actually the culture that when team works very well, what are the components of this? So you will get from there. And number 3, I think the type of we spoke today as well about leadership, but there I also talk about how to like going a little bit far from like just theoretical, but leadership in the organization of smaller, of mid or larger side, like how to implement it into actions, how to build a great leadership experience for yourself, for your people, for managers as well. So a lot of practical examples and personal experience of building different leadership practices in Mindvalley that can be applied in your company too.
Yeah, I think those are 3 awesome takeaways. And like you said, they're very practical, and every organization has to do this at some point, or I need to be thinking about HR in this kind of way. So I think it'll be super useful and beneficial to a lot of people. And this comes out on December 15th, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So guys, keep a lookout for it. For any HR professionals, make sure to take a look at that book. I think you guys will take a lot from it.
Thank you.
Marta, I wanted to first of all, I just got a few more questions for you. I want to first of all say thank you so much for coming on the show today. I've loved this conversation, and just everything has just come together in such an interesting way. So thank you for your time. My two last questions are, first of all, looking back over your career now in Mindvalley, you've been there 7 years, spoken at events, got awards, you've done it all. What would be, if you had to pick one, what would be your proudest moment?
Mm-hmm. The proudest moment. Um, Actually, if like personally, like if I were to speak about my work, definitely one of the proudest moment when we implemented objectives and key results in the company, and we saw the value, and I saw how it transformed for me just reading an article, being curious, and then like finding out about John Doerr, and then implementing it Mindvalley. That was like, professionally speaking, it was a very, very proud and impactful moment. Personally, of seeing the impact of the team, it was the moment when I was in Estonia and we opened the door of Mindvalley University. It was second time we were organizing after Barcelona. And I saw people coming in for their first session in this big hall. And I was there standing with the team. Team was like greeting them, registering. And I was just like looking at this wide open doors and seeing all the people that I never saw them before, and I only know that they did their journey online, most probably, or even first time interacting with Mindvalley. It was like I don't know, like dreams come true moment for
Yeah.
sure, because you only saw it in your dreams that it's possible, and then you saw all these people smiling. That was a very, very touching moment, and I was so proud of the team, of what the team was able to build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those moments, I actually had someone on the podcast recently, and they said something similar, that their proudest moment was after putting all the work together, having the vision in their head of the experience they wanted to have, how people be smiling, how they're going to see it come to fruition and see it in real life. It really brings everything home and makes you feel good. And also when you're doing it with people, it just makes, that's those moments that really develop and like bring those relationships together, because you're like, we all did this, we did this as a team. So no, that's awesome. That's an
Yeah.
awesome story. And for my last question, it's a question I ask all my guests, is what is the message you'd like people to take home with them today?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's such a nice question. I like it so much. I think. Mhm. Oh, I think there is so much that I would like to share. But if you are in HR professional, if you are HR professional who is listening to this podcast, I really want to say that I admire your work, and I really see like huge value in what we all do as specialists, as people, no matter what type of company we are in. The business of people and caring for them and building strong cultures is something that creates like extremely long lasting change on the environment, on the society. So if you are in this journey, I want to congratulate you. I want to wish you all the best, and all the support and growth. If you are like CEO and businessman, my hat's off to you, because building a business, it's such a roller coaster, and it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of guts, it takes a lot of um, it takes a lot of dreaming, and also execution to make it happen. So I something that I aspire to be one day, maybe, but I really, really want to support you, and want to say that like we all, like all people are admiring and should be admiring entrepreneurs a lot. And if you are a person who maybe right now you're looking for the job, or you don't know what to build career on, or what to like, maybe you are stuck a little bit, I want to say that like what happens in life, it's needed at this point of time. Treat this moment as the way to perhaps grow yourself, or connect with someone who you need to connect with. Take this time to maybe choose the company that you really want to work for, like identify this company for yourself, spend some time reflecting, and giving this freedom to maybe like choose the work that will make you fulfilled. So be very careful about that, and choose wisely. And don't forget about growing yourself every day as a person, as individual, or as professional.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful message. So a big shout out to all the HR professionals out there. Marta appreciates all your work and how important it is. And to anyone who built a business, also, I think what you said is very relative, because it is a dream. It all starts with a dream, and then to execute it and to go through that process. And like, most importantly now, given everything that's happened, is to try to take a step back, to reflect and find out what is it that you think will fulfill you, what career path, what job, what company, what work, and look at investing and growing yourself every day. I think that's a beautiful way to end the podcast, and a great message for everyone. Marta, I wanted to say thank you so much again for your time. This has been an absolute pleasure. I've loved this conversation. I've learned so much about culture and HR and people that I didn't even know before. And I think anyone looking to build a company, anyone in HR, or anyone who's just interested about these kind of topics can take a lot from this. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you too, Khalid. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed so much. It brought so many ideas and insights for me as well. So kudos for designing it so well for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate the kind words. Guys, to everyone listening, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And as always, hope it helps. Peace.
Bye.